Sometimes I go to the Mary Sue just to laugh the living hell out. Sometimes I go there just to make sure that they post the dumbest of things. Today, they posted one thing that I find so bafflingly stupid that I'm convinced that this thing is written by a 10-year-old. Prepare your sides. Why do we accept villainy from real-life humans that we don't accept from pop culture? Because, Mary Sue, fiction is not the same thing as real life. Reality is not black and white. There are so many shades of gray. The right question that should be asked here is whether or not you ask that question with a straight face, which will promptly be followed by an obligatory question of, how old are you?
Stories in pop culture rely on recognizable villains for the hero to fight against and the audience to rally against. These villains are recognizable because they often mirror actual criminals, corrupt politicians, and other ne'er-do-wells that we deal in real life. Sometimes the politics is explicit. Other times stories can be interpreted as allegories by any side of political argument. Either way, pop culture is never completely divorced from politics. So, why is that we can easily call a villain in a pop culture story, but when we see the same behavior exhibited in real life, we'll find a way to make excuses for it?
That entire paragraph sounds like, Mommy, that guy looks like a bad guy. First paragraph sets up the scene, and then the question in the end is gonna give us that example. So, let's get rolling.
Let's take Star Wars, a franchise that its creators George Lucas credited to his feelings about the Vietnam War and his concerns about an increasingly militarized United States. This piece in Newsweek quotes an interview for Lucas did with the Chicago Tribune where he said, "The original Star Wars was really about the Vietnam War and was the period where Nixon was trying to run for a second term, which got me thinking historically about how the democracies get turned into dictatorships, because the democracies aren't overthrown, they're given away."
Which explains why you shouldn't handle Star Wars to George Lucas. He politicizes everything. Where it could have been just a simple black and white story of rebels versus empire, Star Wars, in my honest opinion, excels when the story is a black and white tale in which they're simple. All you need is just to make the protagonist likable, the empire despicable, and the action's amazing. Basic blockbuster movie formula.
So essentially, the original Star Wars was about a country, the US, controlling its citizens through patriotic propaganda, coercion, and the removal of civic liberties in order to pursue its interests through war, and the rebels, anti-war, and civil rights activists fighting against their own government. Star Wars was also a grand and entertaining space opera. It was both of those things.
Yeah, and who's the one that controls its citizens through propaganda again?
Donald Trump Jr., for example, he put this image on his Instagram account. It's a meme of Pepe. And for those of you who don't know, Pepe is a white nationalist symbol. White nationalist symbol.
So it boggles the mind when Disney CEO and Disney steward of the Star Wars franchise, Bob Iger, says things like, Rogue One is a film the world should enjoy. It is not a film that is in any way a political film. There are no political statements in it at all. And the denial of any political message in Rogue One is all the more disheartening after he lambasts Bernie Sanders' criticism about Disney's employees.
Hey, Mary Sue, can we just enjoy Rogue One as a movie? You can't enjoy Rogue One as its own movie with its own characters and settings. You have to think of it in a political fashion as well. You have to make it as a political statement or something. Oh well, apparently they're gonna turn everything into propaganda right now.
Trump supporters who claim they love Star Wars have so much cognitive dissonance going on that they can hear things like alternative facts, see spectacles like Sean Spicer's outright lying when it comes to Trump's inauguration numbers, and watch the slow erosion of the freedom of the press and still be totally cool with supporting that guy. And I didn't even touch the blatant racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia of which Trump and his administration have been guilty. You think clamping down on collective freedom of expression would be enough? But it is not.
You guys hear the cocks outside? Yeah, they detect the BS. Yeah, I just utter a couple of nonsense from various articles. They say, oh, that's total BS. So what this person is saying here is that Trump supporters who are Star Wars fans can distinguish on who the villains are in Star Wars, but they cannot distinguish the fact that in real life, Trump is the villain. Well, no. You have the mindset of a freaking 10-year-old who thinks that the world is black and white, and in just an instant, easily thinks that Trump is a villain on the basis of... what? This is nothing but projection. You're the one who cannot distinguish between reality and fiction. Blatant racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, of which Trump and his administration have been guilty. How blatant? I mean, those aren't very blatant, those are very vague.
Now, Star Wars might be a bit too complex, the lens which to talk about this, because there's a lot of nuance in the Star Wars universe, and depending on which aspect you're talking about, you could theoretically make it to be about whatever you want. But check out this clip above, which we covered previously.
Which links into that part where Trump says, "Giving it to you, the people," and cuts into Bane also saying, "Giving it to you, the people." Just because they say the same thing doesn't mean Trump is, oh my god, the villain. Good lord. These are the same people that dismiss Pizzagate in an instant, but when it's Trump, they're gonna pull off the most bizarre of conspiracy theories imaginable that even Pizzagate sounds more credible.
No one thinks Bane is a hero of the Batman stories. No one watches The Dark Knight Rises and think, hey, they should let that Bane guy be in charge of a while. I'm sure he's totally has Gotham's best interest at heart. No, they see him for the unstable villain that he is, see it through his clear manipulation and the root for Batman to take him down. Yet when Trump uses Bane's words that evoke the same feelings, yay, what a strong leader.
You can't be serious, right? You really can't be serious, right? You can't argue that with a straight face, right?
If they don't have sukiyaki, then our theory is as bogus as Scientology.
I'd like to think that for many of the Trump supporters, it's a matter of not wanting to see the same villainy in a real person as they would in a fictional character. He doesn't actually believe the things he say, but clearly he's peddling and saying those things. Isn't that enough to disgust you? It's a naivete that's sweet, but harmful to the country.
How am I supposed to react to this? This person has a black and white mentality that can only come up from the craziest of millennials. The only thing that I can say is I would probably go out and murder someone to death. Do people die when they are killed?
However, it's equally likely that too many of those who voted for Trump have absolutely zero problem with the Empire, Bane, Richfield, or Trump. They see themselves as the minions of those villains on their side, and so more likely to benefit from the regime than those who are not. It's frightening.
What? So you're telling me that Trump voters are allies, or at least sympathetic to the Empire? Well, I can't blame them. The Empire looks pretty cool, but you can't say this with a straight face, Mary Sue, unless the one writing this article is legitimately 10 years old.
But this is why it's so important to embrace the things that we watch, read, and listen to. I was talking to a friend this weekend about how sad it is that my favorite books in high school, George Orwell's 1984 and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, are basically how-to guides now. We need to study the villains in our pop culture to remember what to look out for and what villainy looks like.
Wow, the irony is astonishing. You're the one complaining that 1984 is being used as a guide, and yet you're doing exactly the same thing that the Inksock are doing to newspeak and fake news propaganda. It's your favorite book, but you cannot see how writing this article makes you the villain of the story as you contribute into what your villains are doing, like newspeak and the establishment. Well, not really anymore, because Trump is in the White House, so you can cry as much as you like for losing that power. Also, since people are starting to compare Trump into actual fictional characters, it's only a matter of time before they start the rebellion movement and trash the street down. Oh wait, they did. It's only a matter of time before they shoot people. Oh wait, they did. It's only a matter of time before America's gonna suffer another civil war. How about that?
It's one thing to read dystopias like the Hunger Games or fantasy series like the Harry Potter books and say, that was fun, and also, down with the Capitol or down with Voldemort. It's also another thing to allow the messages of those books and films to sink in. We should be translating those feelings about the villains in our stories into actions against the villains in our real life. We should be using these stories to illustrate those who don't see how harmful the person they voted for actually is, that the person they voted for is using plays straight out of the villain playbook.
How is this written in paper? That's why these people love these young adult novels so much. They have a very simplistic black and white theme of rebels versus empire, and they projected themselves so much into the characters they legitimately think that they are the real rebels in the room. Adolescence hits way too late for you guys, huh? Mary Sue, for the record, you are the establishment. The actual rebels got Trump voted and said screw you to corporate globalists like Clinton and elected meme Lord God Emperor Trump. The dumbass God Emperor meme Naru Trump, but still. And now you're only crying and pissing and moaning because the establishment is not on your hands. And your tears are delicious.
We need to stop pretending that pop culture has nothing to do with politics and recognize that good stories can often make excellent blueprints.
As in, we need to look the political side of every pop culture imaginable instead of just what it is. Something fun, something enjoyable, something that we can watch together and enjoy it. Nah, we're dealing with an ideologue. And ideologues have their head buried in the sand. Ideologues have their lenses blurred and their reality skewed. They will commit the most laughable of defense mechanisms to prevent reality to go into their heads. And this article shows that one of those defense mechanisms is a simplistic black and white outlook of Trump being the god-awful villain. Well, congratulations, Mary Sue. You just proved that not only your site has been populated by a bunch of rabid feminists, but also a bunch of 10-year-old rabid feminists. Nara Trump is the president of the United States because you say these sort of rhetorics, and people get tired of it. I highly suggest you to take my advice and start working with him because he's your president and you can't do anything about it. That, or you can just whine on the internet. Whatever works for you. Or do this. I heard it was a very good stress reliever. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching.